This is CGTN, China Global Television Network.
Hello and welcome to the world today. I'm Richard Nta in Nairobi. Here's what's ahead. Dozens of migrants trying to reach England from France have died after their boat capsized in the English Channel. Olaf Scholz to become German Chancellor after securing coalition deal. And Islamist group Al-Shabaab claims responsibility for a suicide bombing in Somalia that has killed at least 8 people. Once again, welcome to the world today. Let's begin with highly significant news in Somalia. At least 8 people have been killed and tens of others injured after an explosion rocked the Somali capital, Mogadishu, and that's according to police. The blast took place outside a school in the early hours of Thursday. The Al-Qaeda-linked Al-Shabaab militant group has claimed responsibility for the attack. Witnesses say, listen to this, school-going children were among the dead. Al-Shabaab, in a statement relayed by its Al-Dalas radio, said it was targeting Western officials being escorted by the African Union peacekeeping convoy. But according to a witness, a private company was escorting the officials and says he saw 4 of the security personnel wounded. The attack occurred as Somalia faces major questions about the stability of its political and security future. At least 27 migrants trying to reach England from France have died when their boat sank off the northern French coast. Wednesday's disaster is among the deadliest on record at the English Channel, one of the world's busiest shipping lanes with strong currents. British Prime Minister Boris Johnson and French President Emmanuel Macron have agreed to step up joint prevention. They include measures to thwart the traffickers blamed for the surge in crossings. All right, let's get more on this. CGTN's Andrew Wilson joins us now from Oxford. Andrew, welcome to the world today. Thank you for joining us. Andrew, the International Organization for Migration says Wednesday's disaster is the biggest single loss of life in the English Channel. What more can you tell us about the incident, Andrew?
The figures are extraordinary, and it really will make a huge political difference. People have been losing their lives in the Channel over the past couple of years, trying to make this desperately dangerous journey in flimsy boats with their families, women and children, all putting to sea, but never in such numbers altogether. It's still not clear what happened to this boat. 27 at least people died, but there could have been more. 2 are in hospital recovering from their injuries. It's not clear yet whether the boat simply deflated, which some people think, this flimsy rubber boat, but some of the French Coast Guard think it may have been struck by a container ship. As you said in your introduction, this is one of the busiest shipping lanes in the world. The numbers will highlight the problem. Already the UK gives something like $70 million to the French authorities to help pay for policing the French coast and also for police operations to track down these people smugglers. But clearly it's not enough, and clearly Paris and London are not working closely enough together, nor are the other countries vaguely involved, like Belgium and Germany, where some of these traffickers start their business and some of these refugees start their journey. So this will be the call to arms now. The UK's had a crisis meeting. There's a fair amount of finger pointing already going on from Westminster and from the Elysee Palace in France. But this should be the trigger now that brings more concerted action from both sides on putting the lid on this extremely dangerous practice that is only getting worse.
All right, Andrew, important point that you've made there. As you've mentioned, the UK government held a crisis meeting over the incident. Do we know what came out of that meeting? Andrew?
Yes, it's clear that the UK has been experiencing rising levels of concern in terms of the numbers coming in. For example, already this year, 2021, there's been about 26,000 migrants have made it to the UK shores. I might add that even after yesterday's disaster, 2 more boats arrived on UK shores this morning, we understand. But that figure of 26,000 is 3 times more than last year, 2020. So one can only assume that there's a graph here that continues upwards. Also, this is November now. The weather is getting tricky. It's extremely cold outside, and yet still a large number of boats have made it across the channel just in the last few weeks. So the desperation levels are getting higher. The people smugglers are still finding clients to move across with this promise that the UK is this El Dorado, this paradise waiting for people to find employment and new lives. So within that, the UK government has realised that there's a lot of myth making in terms of what kind of sanctuary the UK offers that they need to tackle. There is, of course, the policing aspect. The French authorities have already said that the coast along by Calais is far too long for individual patrols. Even if you put thousands of police out there, you still wouldn't be able to see the launching of the boats. So both sides, Paris and France, will inevitably focus again on trying to dismantle these people smuggling networks, which are enormous now. There have been 44 networks dismantled through arrests and police action by France in the last couple of years. 1,500 arrests out of that, but still people come. And they know that there's an international dimension also to these people smuggling networks, where the boats are bought in different parts of Europe and shipped through. The migrants who want to make the journey are passing money to other people far away from France before they even make it to the coast. This has long tendrils reaching into Europe. So there will be a call from the UK for more concerted action from other European capitals, for probably more funding for the French authorities to police the Calais coastline on that side, but also a coordinated police action to go after these people smugglers. It's the only way, really, the only option they have. The two options as far as the migrants are concerned is either stop them coming, which can be brutal, or let them come, which is inviting more trouble. So either way, that UK finds that distasteful.
All right, Andrew Wilson, thank you so much for bringing us up to date with the very latest. Much appreciated. And in news coming out of Germany, Olaf Scholz is set to succeed Angela Merkel as the next German chancellor after forging an unlikely and unprecedented political alliance. The, quote, traffic light coalition, close quote, will include his Social Democratic Party, but also the Greens to the left and Free Democrats to the right. Ryan Thompson has more from Frankfurt.
After nearly 2 months of intense negotiations, Olaf Scholz and his center-left Social Democrats have presented their agreement with the Greens and pro-business Free Democrats to form a government that will take over from Chancellor Angela Merkel next month. This is a historic agreement. Never before have three parties come together to lead in modern German history. In a room full of reporters, Germany's new leading trio revealed the details, which will make Scholz the next chancellor and distribute the various ministries to the parties to name new heads. It's expected that the Greens will take the economy and foreign ministries. The FDP will be in charge of finance, education, justice, and digitalization, while the SPD, which says it will give names in the next few days, is responsible for interior and defense. Top of mind for this new coalition is the COVID-19 crisis. Germany is seeing a surge of cases at record levels. Reports suggest that Angela Merkel, who's acting as a caretaker chancellor right now, called the new government to a meeting on Tuesday and insisted that they enact a lockdown. But the new leaders declined that request and instead will form a COVID special task force. They also plan to focus on digitalization and aggressively meeting climate goals. One major announcement as well is a change to the timeline to phase out coal. That will be moved up to 2030 from 2038. Ryan Thompson, CGTN, Frankfurt.
And in other news, the two-day 13th Asia-Europe meeting begins today in Cambodia. It's the first time for the country to chair the meeting since it started in 1996. It was originally scheduled for 2020, but was delayed due to the pandemic. Rian Meltzer has more from Kuala Lumpur.
This ASEM meeting brings together leaders from 30 European countries, 21 Asian countries, the European Union, and the ASEAN Secretariat as well. And all the leaders will take turns in making short speeches or interventions, as they're called, over the next 2 days, including Chinese Premier Li Keqiang. Now, the theme of this year's summit is strengthening multilateralism for shared growth. And by multilateralism, they mean countries and blocs working collectively for the greater good. And there has been a sense in the past couple of years, recent years, that multilateralism is under threat or in retreat. People point to the US withdrawal from the Trans-Pacific Partnership Free Trade Deal, or India's withdrawal from the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership, or the UK's withdrawal from Europe. And even this pandemic often hasn't shed a great light on multilateralism. We saw countries in long-established regional blocs such as the EU and ASEAN slam their borders shut to one another and then go it alone when it came to procuring vaccines and fighting the pandemic. But there have been some bright spots for multilateralism over the past year or so, such as the signing of this Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership, and also you'd have to say the deal that came out of the big global climate change summit recently as well. And so what this meeting will aim to do is build upon those positives of multilateralism to ensure a rapid rebound from the pandemic, but also a long-term sustainable rebound. And the summit is not looking at multilateralism in the narrow sense of trade deals. It's looking at areas such as finance, environment, combating climate change, women's empowerment, even peace and security. So some very lofty and ambitious goals for these 2 days of meetings.
Well, that's it for this edition of The World Today. I'll be back shortly with more news from the continent in Africa Live. Thanks for watching.
Taken me completely out of my depth, but at the same time it's exciting. It's new, it's different, it's a challenge.
It's really exciting.
Over the last 14 hours of rain.
This is CGTN, China Global Television Network.
Islamist group Al-Shabaab claims responsibility for a suicide bombing in Somalia that has killed at least 8 people. Libya election panel rejects Gaddafi's son as presidential candidate. And Nigerian authorities warn of fake COVID-19 vaccination certificates in the market. Hello and welcome to Africa Live. As always, great to have you with us. I'm Richard Nta, live in Nairobi. And for those of you joining us from across the continent and around the globe, we thank you for joining us. Let's take a look at other stories making headlines this hour. The 21st COMESA summit concludes in Egypt with a call for economic and regional integration. And in sports, Ethiopian great Haile Selassie pledges to join the fight against rebel forces in his country. Once again, welcome to Africa Live. Great to have you along with us for this hour. Let's begin in highly significant news out of Somalia. At least 8 people have been killed and tens of others injured after an explosion rocked the Somali capital, Mogadishu, and that's according to police. The blast took place outside a school in the early hours of Thursday. The Al-Qaeda-linked Al-Shabaab militant group has claimed responsibility for the attack. Witnesses say school-going children were among the dead. Al-Shabaab, in a statement relayed by its Andalus radio, said it was targeting Western officials being escorted by an African Union peacekeeping convoy. But according to a witness, a private company was escorting the officials and says he saw 4 of the security personnel wounded. The attack occurred as Somalia faces major questions about the stability of its political and security future. All right, for the latest on this attack, Ali Hussein, a journalist based in Mogadishu, joins us. Ali, welcome to Africa Live. Thank you for taking time to speak to us. Can you tell us more about this incident? We understand school students are among the casualties.
Well, hi there. Thank you so much for having me. Today morning, a vehicle laden with explosives went off at a road at Abdikasim Road in Mogadishu. Among the 8 people were killed and 17 others were injured in the explosion, which targeted a private convoy that was escorting a UN vehicle that was heading to the Halane base camp, which houses international diplomats, UN agencies, and AMISOM. In the explosion, it also destroyed the building of a school. According to school officials, the administration of the school, which was affected by the explosion, children in the school were among those people who were wounded in the explosion. But the school administration said that there were no deaths reported among children in the school. They said only 7 children who were in the school by then were wounded. It is worth noting that the spokesperson of the Somali police was speaking to the Somali media, said that schools were closed on Thursday and there were no students present. There were no students present at the scene of the explosion when the explosion happened. But a report from the school administration says otherwise. Al-Shabaab, as you said, has claimed responsibility for this attack, saying that it targeted an AU convoy that was passing along the road. But the target, according to witness and according to the state officials, was private security that was escorting a UN vehicle that was heading to Halane base camp. None
Ali,
of the staff
Ali,
in
let me
UN
interject, Ali, if I can. Sorry to interrupt. Ali, what you're saying leads me nicely to my next question. What is the government particularly saying about this attack, given the fact that barely 2 months ago, another attack killed 8 people in the capital Mogadishu.
The Somali authorities are trying to heighten security in the capital. As you walk along the roads, as you pass the roads in Mogadishu, you will see a lot of police presence in the Somali capital. There are also checkpoints along the major highways in the capital, inspecting vehicles and also trying to check on people as they pass along the road. But that seemed not to have improved the security in the capital. As you said, there were explosions, series of explosions that happened in the last 2 months. The latest being one which targeted a director of a radio, a state radio, who died in the explosion. The same explosion also wounded the director of Somali's state TV, who's nursing wounds at a hospital in Turkey as we speak. About 2 weeks ago, Al-Shabaab have also targeted an AU convoy that was passing along the Villa Baydaba road, which also leads to major government institution, killing several civilians in the process. So it seems that there are also assassinations carried by Al-Shabaab among government officials. So it seems that Al-Shabaab is trying to target, is trying to increase attacks in the capital, but the Somali government is also trying to improve the security in the capital, and there are more police presence along the roads, as I said.
All right. Ali Hussein, thank you so much. There you have it, 8 people killed, 17 injured in Mogadishu, another tragic incident in Somalia. In other news, Sudanese Prime Minister Abdallah Hamdok was reinstated after signing a 14-point agreement with military chief General Abdel Fattah al-Burhan. After Hamdok's deal with the ruling military administration, Sudanese people are wondering what changes this will mean for their country. Naba Muhaddin reports from Khartoum.
After the reinstatement of Abdallah Hamdok as Prime Minister, there are mixed reactions among Sudanese people about the deal with the military.
This deal is rejected. Hamdok should have discussed this step with his political allies, the Freedom and Change Coalition, not with the ones who toppled him. We reject this deal, and it's a correction for the military takeover, not a correction for the revolution.
If the partnership with the military will be successful, it wouldn't take this long time, tears and blood. It's really confusing whether Hamdok will be supported by his old political allies or a Burhan political incubator.
It's a good deal, although it's not satisfying everyone. The political parties now should work for the next elections and stop fighting over chairs.
Abdallah Hamdok has promised to form other governance structures, including the Legislative Council, prosecution, and independent judiciary system. The New Deal proposes amendments to the country's constitutional declaration, which serves as the transition constitution. Political analysts like Ashraf Abdulaziz think it's a long road for the Prime Minister to restore confidence.
If Hamdok cancelled all the decisions taken by Burhan after the power grab and restored the civil service positions for the protest groups, and he exempted the former government loyalists from service, he could build confidence and reassurances to the protest groups and form a consensus.
The United States is now placing the political deal, but it says its support for Sudan's transition relies on military and civilian leaders sticking to commitments made in their agreement. Naba Muhaddin, CGTN, Khartoum, Sudan.
African First Ladies are on a mission to promote peace and development on the continent. The wives of African leaders made the commitment in Nigeria's capital, Abuja, this week at the first General Assembly of the African First Ladies Peace Mission. CGTN's Kelechi Mekalam has more.
It's the 9th General Assembly of the African First Ladies Peace Mission. Government officials and members of the diplomatic corps joined First Ladies from across Africa for the summit. Issues from terrorism and conflicts to poverty and irregular migration form the core of conversations here.
This meeting comes at an opportune time and underscores the need to generate ideas on the best ways to assist in mitigating conflicts and enhancing peace, security, and the well-being of all in our communities.
Let history guide us to ensure that the Africa we bequeath to our children today is better than the one we inherited. Let us commit ourselves to working together towards achieving glorious destiny for all Africans.
Tens of thousands of people have been killed and millions displaced from their homes in 11 years of Boko Haram's insurgency in Nigeria's northeast and the Lake Chad region. Women and children have been the worst hit. That's why government is keen on backing this mission.
I would like to reiterate the commitment of our government to the resolutions of this assembly, and I invite other African leaders to do the same. The importance of this assembly lies in the fact that peace has become an elusive subject that affects development in many regions of Africa.
The African First Ladies Peace Mission Summit last held 6 years ago, labeled as a very influential group capable of turning around the fortunes of the continent. With Nigeria's First Lady Aisha Buhari as the new president of the mission, the women rise with a renewed commitment to help in rebuilding the continent for the good of all. Kelechi Emekalam, CGTN Abuja, Nigeria.
Outgoing United Nations Libya mediator Jans Kubis has warned that Libya risks further division and conflict if it fails to hold planned elections. A UN political forum last year demanded parliamentary and presidential elections on December the 24th as part of a roadmap to end Libya's civil war.
As demonstrated by the high number of registered voters and candidates, the Libyan people are yearning for an opportunity to elect their representatives and give them a mandate to govern Libya through democratic legitimacy. It is high time that Libya, led by the authorities and institutions with strong democratic mandate, derived through elections, liberate itself from external interferences. Libya cannot continue destroying itself by continuing to offer itself as a playground for foreign interests and ambitions.
Saif al-Islam Gaddafi, the son of Libya's former ruler, is ineligible to run for elections as a presidential candidate in the December polls. This is the latest from Libya's election commission that has also disqualified 24 other candidates from the race. A total of 98 aspirants registered to run. Gaddafi has been ruled out by the commission as he was sentenced to death for alleged war crimes in 2015. Eastern Commander Khalifa Haftar may also be locked out of the election as he is said to have U.S. nationality, which he has denied. He is also under scrutiny for war crimes that he is accused of committing during his assault on Tripoli. UN Libya envoy Jans Kubis says the country's judiciary will make the final decision on rules of the election and which candidates are eligible. Adel Al-Mahroui has more from Cairo.
98 Libyans applied to the nation's first ever presidential election, among them 2 women. Almost all prominent political figures who emerged after the 2011 uprising have submitted their candidacy documents before the elections committee closed its doors on Monday.
I believe it's a very healthy sign to see so many people running through the elections. Libya never had political battles before. We are now creating a new culture. There is a feeling among people now that the seat of power is not too far away. That's much better than going to arms and returning to war.
Many Libyan factions are interested to fill the seat former President Muammar Gaddafi left, including his son Saif al-Islam. The country's elections committee is now accepting appeals against all applicants. It will then announce a final list of approved candidates by December 6.
There is still deep division among Libyan society, especially over power and leading Libya. Is the international community capable of forcing Libyan factions to accept the results? Will Libya's West accept a presidential victory for Saif al-Islam Gaddafi? Will they accept a Khalifa Haftar victory? So before announcing the results, there must be guarantees and mechanisms set to ensure that all of Libya accepts the results of the vote.
More than 1,700 Libyans have applied for the legislative race. The number is expected to increase as the Elections Committee will keep receiving applicants until the first week of December. 2.8 million Libyans are eligible to vote in the December 24 elections. Unless something sparks violence, it appears that Libya's elections are on track. Appeals against some candidates are pouring in. Some politicians have even appealed against the constitutionality of the election laws, what could see the legal foundation for the whole vote collapse. Adel Mahroui, CGTN, Cairo.
The news continues on Africa Live. We'll see you on the other side of the break with more news stories. Here's what's ahead. COVID cases break records in Europe, prompting booster shot expansion. Nigerian authorities warn of fake COVID-19 vaccination certificates in the market. Welcome back to Africa Live. Thanks for staying with us. South Africa is reporting a new COVID-19 variant. The variant, described as a super variant, is said to have an extremely high number of mutations, but so far only 10 cases have been detected. Scientists in South Africa say they are still not sure if vaccines are effective against this variant. The variant has also been detected in Botswana. Meanwhile, Europe is once again the epicenter of the COVID-19 pandemic. European countries are reporting record numbers of daily infections. The World Health Organization has warned that another 700,000 people there could die from COVID-19 by March next year. The situation has prompted new curbs on movement. Austria has imposed a national lockdown, while Italy has barred unvaccinated people from leisure activities. The European CDC has urged countries to consider giving COVID-19 vaccine boosters to all adults. Around 60% of people in Western Europe are fully immunized against the virus. The European Medicines Agency is also to decide whether to approve Pfizer-BioNTech vaccine for use on children aged 5 to 11. COVID-19 has infected more than 258 million people and killed 5.4 million globally over the past 2 years. Kenya is set to become one of the first countries in Africa to enforce a vaccine mandate next month. Authorities say those without proof of vaccination after December the 21st will not be able to access public or private services. CGTN's Robert Nagila has that story.
At a bus stop in Nairobi Central Business District, passengers vaccinated against COVID-19 and those yet to receive a single dose share a bus to their destinations. But that may soon come to an end after the government announced plans to introduce a vaccine mandate.
Everybody seeking in-person government services should be fully vaccinated and proof of vaccination availed by December 21st.
From the 21st of December, Kenyans will be required to show proof of vaccination to use public transport, travel by rail or air, visit a pub, restaurant or hotel, or visit a game reserve. Unvaccinated Kenyans will also have no access to government services. Public transport operators say it is difficult to implement the mandate, which comes into force during the busiest period, the Christmas holidays.
We have not gone through any awareness campaign to be able to establish if one has been vaccinated or not. We just hear there is a secret number. We have not been told how to detect it.
There are still no details on how this directive by the government will be implemented. But if, like me, you've received both doses of the vaccine, all one has to do is log in to the Ministry of Health portal and your vaccine certificate, complete with the QR code, comes up. According to legal experts, the government is within its powers to enforce a vaccine mandate.
being a pandemic, under the Public Health Act, government can gazette anything that is meant to protect its citizens. The government has a moral obligation, the constitutional obligation, to protect the 44 million Kenyans.
Just over 2.5 million Kenyans have been fully vaccinated, about 9% of the adult population. Early this year, the government set a target of vaccinating 10 million Kenyans this year, but says there's been a slowdown in the uptake of vaccines over the past couple of months. On Friday, authorities will launch a major vaccination drive across the country to encourage more Kenyans to get the jab ahead of the vaccine mandate. Robert Nagila, CGTN, Nairobi, Kenya.
Nigerian authorities have warned of the existence of a black market for COVID-19 vaccination certificates in the country. Fraudsters and some dishonest public officials are now selling the documents to those desperately seeking for travel reasons. Now, this was revealed by a senior government official who also announced that the health ministry has started a mass vaccination exercise in the country. CGTN's Kelechi Mekalam reports.
Some unscrupulous citizens are procuring vaccination cards through the black market, all in an attempt to beat the system.
A disturbing trend for Africa's most populous nation. Citizens illegally purchasing COVID-19 vaccine certificates without taking the jabs. But authorities say they're determined to end this illegal practice.
I want to assure everyone that the vaccination records and certificates will be verified. And this should serve as a warning to those criminally minded persons to desist, because they will be prosecuted accordingly.
Many people say difficulties in getting vaccines and vaccine hesitancy are some of the factors that are fueling the cheating. They worry that such actions would work against the current efforts to combat the spread of COVID-19.
People are actually scared of taking the vaccine, maybe from stories they've heard about how people fall sick or how people die. But I think for people going to do the certificate, for me, I think it's illegal. I think that is just being dishonest.
Those people who pay to get the card, they're endangering their own life and other people's life. So I feel that everybody should go through the due process of getting the vaccine.
Vaccine mandate policies have become a global phenomenon since the world economy was reopened following long closures occasioned by the pandemic. Travel protocols and some employers now need proof that one has been fully vaccinated against COVID-19. So fraudsters are now cashing in on the demand for quick vaccination certificates, but are further jeopardizing the government's efforts to curb the spread of the virus by doing so.
The government have done well by providing the vaccine. We should take it a step further by doing, orientation. When you are not informed, you are deformed. It appears most people, though they are educated, but they are not informed. Talk about it that there is no consequence about this. Even seeing that some of us have taken the vaccine, nothing has happened to us for more than 6 months now.
The government says that just 2.9% of Nigeria's eligible population has been fully vaccinated. That's about 3.3 million people. Authorities have scaled up efforts to inoculate 50% Nigerian citizens by January 2020 so as to achieve herd immunity in the country. Kelechi Mekalam, CGTN Abuja, Nigeria.
UN Women have released a new report highlighting intensified gender-based violence against women during the COVID-19 pandemic. The new data comes as the world marks the International Day for the Elimination of Violence Against Women. CGTN's Joy Krukijuma has the story.
The conversation on gender-based violence is far from over. The UN Women report shows that the COVID-19 pandemic is acting as an incubator for more violent acts against women.
We had these rates affirming that 1 in 3 women, they continued suffering physical and or sexual violence. And most of these forms of violence, they have been experienced by their own intimate partners.
Exposure was highest amongst women in Kenya, Morocco, Jordan, and Nigeria,
while those in Paraguay were the least affected by reported such experiences. Overall, 1 in 4 women reported that violence against women most commonly experience is verbal abuse or denial of basic resources.
For the affected women, the abuse can be experienced while at home or even when interacting with people outdoors.
Looking at specific age groups, women who are most vulnerable, we see that younger women aged 18 to 49 years of age were the most affected population, but also women who are employed during the pandemic. The findings reveal that 1 in 4 women are feeling less safe at home as conflict has increased within households during the pandemic. Outside of their homes, women are feeling less safe as well, with 40% of respondents saying that they feel less safe walking around alone at night since COVID began.
Policy recommendations of what the UN has named a shadow pandemic include allocating enough services and resources to cater to victims. The report acts as a prelude to 16 days of activism against gender-based violence. Joy Kiruki Juma, CGTN.
The Grand Johannesburg Art Gallery has reopened, and taking pride of place at the center of the gallery is a new exhibition by 2021 FNB Art Prize winner Zimbabwean painter Wycliffe Mudopa. His brand new body of work is a suite of more than 15 canvases elevating and celebrating the lives of Zimbabwe's women. CGTN's Yulisa Njamela has more.
Wycliffe Mudopa's work mostly reflects the lives of children and women in Harare's underprivileged neighborhoods. The artist's colorful artworks speak vibrantly and passionately about their ordinary everyday lives. Mudopa uses his paintings as a metaphor reflecting what happens in his society. In this particular exhibition, he uses 15 canvases to reflect women of Zimbabwe who thrive in their lives and are courageous enough to claim joy and happiness despite what life throws at them.
They are all monumental pieces, 2 or 3 meters in size, and he has really taken over the gallery with an exciting body of work that shows an everyday life in Zimbabwe, celebrating the women moving through contemporary public spaces, interacting with each other, interacting with society, and it's really a celebration of the culture.
The characters in Mudopa's paintings also reflect the conflicts between tradition and the contemporary in modern Zimbabwean life. And in these huge, brightly colored canvases, he places women at the center.
His work really celebrates women, everyday women, also, not just the phenomenal, fantastical females in our lives, our heroes, but the everyday woman. And in doing that, making those choices, he's making the everyday woman a hero. And that's something, I think it's sort of, he's rewriting history or our culture and showing, hold on, no, we need to look at these figures, look at the women that raised us, the women that supported us, that created our culture, that carried our culture, that created our country, our families.
The painter is this year's FNB Art Prize winner. The FNB Art Prize is one of the most coveted visual art prizes on the African continent.
This year we were really excited about Wycliffe's work because he showed, it was exciting in South Africa to see such talent from Zimbabwe, our neighbor. A lot of times in South Africa we just hear negative news about Zimbabwe, but that's not the full story, and we have so much talent in our northern neighbor, especially in the tradition of painting. So we felt it was important to acknowledge that and celebrate that this year. It's long overdue.
The artist has dedicated this body of work to the memory of his mother. Yulisa Njamela for CGTN in Johannesburg, South Africa.
The news continues on Africa Live. We've got our business segment coming up next. Here's a peek at the headlines. The 21st COMESA summit concludes in Egypt with a call for economic and regional integration. And why some communities in Nigeria see the sunflower as a golden plant.
Africa is a continent of diversity, with varied climates and enchanting geography, and a people so distinct, but with a shared enduring spirit. We are at the heart of the continent to bring you the untold stories.
Let's have a look.
We celebrate Africa as it shapes its own destiny.
Tunis, Cairo,
Juba,
Johannesburg, Ethiopia, Tanzania.
Africa Live. Find your voice.
Welcome back. The 21st Summit of the Common Market for Eastern and Southern Africa has concluded in Egypt's new administrative capital. The summit aimed to encourage the use of digital economy tools to facilitate business practices and enhance member states' resilience against the economic repercussions of the coronavirus pandemic. Yasser Hakim was at the event and filed this report.
Egyptian President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi assumed the chairmanship of the 21st COMESA meeting from the outgoing Madagascan President André Rajoelina. This year's summit, the first since 2018, has been overshadowed by the pandemic-induced economy and the slow recovery in the continent from its negative effects.
Économiques et sociales désastreuses.
Coronavirus pandemic has had a catastrophic effect on the country. More than 250,000 people lost their jobs, and many economic sectors were shocked by the COVID-19. The impact on commodity prices, food and basic goods led to social crisis in the African countries.
Le choc de la COVID-19.
As the incoming chair, El-Sisi outlined his four-pillar integration strategy for the next 3 years. It is based on promoting trade integration with the other African economic blocs, industrial integration between COMESA members to create the Made in COMESA brands, health integration to tackle crises such as the pandemic, and infrastructure integration.
Egypt is formulating a mechanism to help monitor the measures taken by each country to apply the tariff cuts and incentives, as well as to adopt the scheme to achieve the goals of this strategy. The responsibility of this summit is to agree on how to speed up the recovery and strengthen our ability to face challenges such as the pandemic.
Intra-COMESA trade in pre-pandemic year 2019 was nearly $11 billion and dropped to just over $8 billion in 2020. Officials say there's potential for much more from the 21 COMESA member states, especially with the surge in digital trade and e-commerce after the coronavirus outbreak.
We therefore need to take advantage of the community opportunities that exist in enhancing COMESA's productive capacities through the uptake of digital solutions, development, and investment in the fiscal infrastructure, and complementing these with trade facilitation measures for intra-regional trade to strengthen existing and new value chains and industrial growth while staying alive to the increasing role of digitizing of trade, industrialization, and security.
This is the second presidency for Egypt. The first was exactly 20 years ago. There has been setbacks and progress during that period, but officials here are optimistic that going forward there will be more progress to achieve the dream of total African economic integration. Yes, Hakim for CGTN, Cairo.
Over now to Nigeria, where rising demand for sunflowers is creating employment for the locals. The crop is considered one of the ancient plants used for various traditional health treatments. As CGTN's Kelechi Mekalam now reports, many in Nigeria's rural communities are taking into sunflower farming and packaging the crop for commercial purposes.
It's been nearly 1 year since Yossi Amos took to sunflower farming. The 62-year-old retiree sought to harness the medicinal properties of the plant for her family's health needs. But it turned out a profitable venture after she sold a portion of the crop and had more people requesting for it. Now Yossi is looking to expand her sunflower farm to meet up with rising demand.
People like it, they go for it. So the demand became so high and people were looking for it house to house. Yes, to fry and sell. They even came right in here to buy. I didn't take it to the market. You know, in these days, most of these days, people suffer from this rheumatism and arthritis. But most people testify that when they take the sunflower, as it is fried, it reduces all those pain.
Nigerians are embracing sunflower for its edible oils and remedial properties. Various studies have shown that it's rich in proteins, fiber, and essential minerals, which support the immune system and increase the ability to fight off viruses. Locals use the seeds, stems, and leaves for various ailments, ranging from detoxification purposes to the treatment of fungal infections, aches and pains, and management of high blood pressure.
A lot of people have been using the sunflower to take boil the sunflower and drink, and then it helps to control most time when they come for BP checkup. You discover that their BPs are always regularized.
Sunflower has become an emerging commodity in the global market, valued at $2.5 billion. But Africa is yet to harness the gains, as it contributes slightly just over 7% of the global output of 42.5 million metric tons. Health experts believe that, with good research support, plants like sunflower can make for great pharmaceutical break in Africa.
If research are being sponsored and developed, I feel most of these things in our institutions, like the higher institutions and all that, these things should have been things that most of the students should have taken it as project topics. And then the developmental stage would move from one level to another. And by now, most of the professors would have taken it up and said, okay, we can now establish this as a fact, and then the pharmaceutical industry will pick it up, and then drugs can be produced.
Easy to farm and tolerant to drought, sunflower doesn't require fertilizer to thrive. As more attention is drawn to the crop for its rich dietary and medicinal components, farmers like Yossi believe that if the crop gains the much-needed government support, it will boost Nigeria's export earnings. Kelechi Emekalam, CGTN, Jos Plateau, Nigeria.
Welcome into Sport on Africa Live. We begin with news on one of athletics' greats, Ethiopian Olympic gold medalist and national hero Haile Gebrselassie. He pledged on Wednesday to join the fight against rebellious forces in his country. The